Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about something we all live by, every single day, but almost never see. We're going to peel back the curtain on the world's unwritten rules, the invisible script that secretly runs our lives.
Let's start with a simple one. A coworker passes you in the hallway, they hit you with the classic, "How are you?" Now be honest, do you actually stop and give them the full, unfiltered story of your day? No way. You just say, "Fine, thanks. You?" Right? It's automatic. It's this little social dance we all do, and it's our first clue that something else is going on. And that really gets to the heart of what we're exploring today. In so many ways, we're all like actors on a giant stage. We're following this invisible script that tells us how to act, what to say, and how to behave. But who wrote this script? And what's it even made of?
Well, that script, it has a name: culture. And no, we're not just talking about fancy art or music. Culture is the entire blueprint for how to live. It's all of it: the shared values, the things a group believes to be true, the rules for behavior, and of course the language and symbols used to pass it all down. Now, it's super easy to get culture and society mixed up, but here's a really simple way to think about it. If culture is the script, then society is the cast of actors, all the people who share that script and bring it to life. They really can't exist without each other. I mean, you can't put on a play with just a script and no actors, right? So if we're going to say culture is a script, what are its actual parts? Let's do it. Let's break it down and look at the core building blocks that make every single culture work. Okay, so this script is basically built on 4 key ingredients. It all starts with values and beliefs. These are the big ideas about what a group feels is important or right or true. From there, you get norms, which are the specific, unwritten rules for how to actually behave. And how does it all get passed around? Through symbols and language. They're the glue holding the whole thing together. But here's where it starts to get messy. There's often this huge gap between the things we say we believe in and how we actually live. Sociologists call this ideal culture versus real culture. The ideal is the standard we hold up, like, say, total marital faithfulness. But the real culture, well, that's what people actually do. And the statistics on infidelity tell a very different story. That tension is part of every society.
And if we dive even deeper into those norms, you'll see they're not all created equal. Not even close. On one side, you have mores. These are the big ones, the rules that are tied to a deep sense of morality. Breaking one of these, like through violence or even academic plagiarism, is a serious offense. But on the other side, you have folkways. These are just the day-to-day customs, the polite things to do. If you break one of these, like talking way too loud on your phone in a quiet cafe, yeah, it's rude, but it's not going to get you kicked out of the club, you know? So just how much do we rely on these little, unwritten rules? A sociologist named Harold Garfinkel came up with this genius and kind of devious way to find out. It's called a breaching experiment. Imagine playing tic-tac-toe. You draw your X, but then the other person, instead of putting their O in a box, draws it right on the line dividing the squares. The reaction is always the same: confusion, frustration, maybe even real anger. It proves how much we depend on these hidden agreements just to make reality make sense. When they're broken, the world feels wobbly. And finally, we have to talk about the delivery system for all of this: language. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis proposes something that sounds kind of radical. It says that language isn't just a tool we use to describe the world. It's more like a pair of glasses that actively shapes and constructs the reality we see. And get this, researchers did a study where they asked German speakers and Spanish speakers to describe a key. Now, in German, the word for key is masculine, and people used words like hard, heavy, and jagged. But in Spanish, the word is feminine, and they used words like golden, intricate, and lovely. It's the exact same object, but the grammar of their language literally changed how they perceived it. It shaped their reality.
Okay, so we're all pretty comfortable with our own cultural script. But what happens when you go somewhere else and suddenly realize everyone is working from a totally different playbook? This is where the script breaks down. And honestly, this is where things get really interesting. Think about something as simple as getting on a bus. If you're in Dublin, you gotta stick your arm out and hail it like a cab, or it'll just drive right by. In Cairo, it's normal to hop on while the bus is still rolling. And if you're trying to get on a train in Mumbai,
Pushing and shoving isn't rude, it's just how you get on the train. What's totally normal in one place is completely bizarre in another.
So when you see that, what's your first reaction? Your gut probably says, whoa, that's dangerous, or that's so rude. Our way is better. That feeling, it has a name. It's called ethnocentrism. It's our very natural, very human tendency to use our own culture as the default, as the yardstick for judging everybody else.
The sociologist who came up with the term, William Graham Sumner, put it very bluntly way back in 1906. He said it's the belief that one's own culture is better than all others. And look, a little bit of pride in where you come from is one thing. But when ethnocentrism goes unchecked, it leads to huge misunderstandings and even conflict.
So when you're the one who's actually dropped into a place with a totally different script, the personal result is something called culture shock. It's that intense feeling of being lost, frustrated, and just totally disoriented because none of your automatic, unwritten rules work anymore.
Let's talk about Caitlin, an American who studied abroad in Madrid. She was completely overwhelmed. Dinner didn't even start until 10 p.m. People at the dinner table would have these loud, passionate arguments about politics, something that's a huge no-no back home. And then her friend's mom greeted her with kisses on both cheeks. Every little interaction was a reminder that her internal rulebook was useless here. That is culture shock. So what's the solution? What's the antidote to that ethnocentric gut reaction? It's a practice called cultural relativism. Now, this is super important. It does not mean you have to agree with everything another culture does. It just means you try to assess a culture by its own standards, not yours. You try to understand it from the inside.
There's this great story about an anthropologist named Ken Barger who was living with the Inuit. He entered a snowshoe race and was totally mortified because he came in dead last. But afterward, the Inuit people came up and congratulated him. Why? Because for them, in a culture built around survival, winning wasn't the point. What mattered was that he tried his absolute hardest. He saw it through their lens. That's cultural relativism in action. Now, a really key thing to remember is that these cultural scripts, they're not carved in stone. They are living, breathing documents. They're constantly being edited, rewritten, and updated through new discoveries, new inventions, and just bumping up against other cultures. Sometimes our technology just moves way faster than our social rules can keep up. This gap has a name. It's called culture lag. I mean, think about it. We invented smartphones in what felt like an instant, but we are still awkwardly trying to figure out the unwritten rules, the non-material culture, for when it's okay to be on your phone, when it's rude, and when it's not. Our etiquette is lagging behind our technology.
So how do we put all this together? Well, sociologists use different lenses to analyze culture. A functionalist might ask, how does this rule help society run smoothly, like a well-oiled machine? A conflict theorist would ask a different question. Who does this rule benefit? Who has the power here? And a symbolic interactionist would zoom all the way in, watching how we create and perform culture in our tiny, everyday interactions. Each lens tells you a different part of the story. So we've seen that culture is this powerful, invisible script that guides us. It's built on our values, it's enforced by norms, and it's all held together by language. And while most of us learn our script without even thinking about it, the most powerful thing you can do is realize that the script exists. Because once you can see the unwritten rules, you get to ask a really important question. Which of these rules are actually working, and which ones should we maybe think about rewriting? That choice is up to you.